Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Race to World First After Dark, presented by Secret Lab. I'm your host, Kams. I'm joined by Naguura, and today we're going to be going over some bosses. Quick overview of the raid. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the bosses looked really cool. Tested a lot of them. Didn't test the last boss, of course, but we've seen it now.
Yeah.
Because they killed the boss a few times on normal mode, so.
Yeah, very exciting. But first, make sure to check out Liquid Plus on the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and we have a poll for you in Twitch chat about which is your favorite end boss from like recent times. Got Denathrius, Sylvanas, Jailer, and Razageth.
What is your favorite one from those four?
Denathrius.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, by far. Oh, is that my vote going in?
Maybe. Razageth. People like Razageth. I mean, I don't think I didn't hate Razageth, but I didn't like the front-loaded difficulty of phase 1 that much. That was the biggest problem with that boss.
Yeah, and
I also didn't hate Jailer. Jailer has no votes. Wow.
yeah, I don't know many
Jailer.
people like Jailer.
Huh, interesting.
Very, also pretty front-loaded. Some love coming in. Very front-loaded as well.
Yeah, I guess that's also the problem with it, yeah.
Yeah.
And Sylvanas, I think the boss could have been really good if phase 2 wasn't like a thing.
Yeah.
Phase 2, like, and all of this like a forced downtime with the intermission, you're stunned and blah blah blah. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I like the platform jumping, throwback to Madness at Deathwing, kind of cool. But enough of these old bosses, let's get into the new ones.
Yes.
Yeah, is it KAZZARA? That's the first?
Yeah.
KAZZARA? Yes, the first boss. Dragon. Very cool intro to the Shadow Flame looking spell with the beams and the puddles. A cool like purple orange flavor. I really like that effect.
I also like the Shadow Flame effect, like this orangey purple / blue. Like, it looks really, really cool.
Yeah.
KAZZARA, on the other hand, I mean, it's a simple boss. It's a first boss. It looks cool. I like the armor on KAZZARA, and this is also, of course, the mount skin you can get if you kill mythic SARKARETH, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't know if it's fully confirmed it's mythic only, but that seems to be what everyone's saying. Yeah, and the phases, you can see here, it loses armor at 80, 60, 40%, and it does, is it just more ticking damage as the armor comes off?
I think there's more like beams, more rifts, more rays, stuff like that, the lower the boss is. Yeah,
so on this fight, I guess it gets harder as it goes on, and then there's a knockback. There's beams that come down that you have to kite into the dread rifts, which are puddles, and then the beams kind of leave a path. And on Mythic, you can't kite the beams into any kind of puddle on the ground from the beams themselves or from leftover dread rifts.
Yeah, exactly. So you can also position the dread rifts yourself. So they're on players, you're the ones that drop them. So you can figure out a strategy, you can make a line with them and then like all kite them in there. The thing with the beams though is that they're a little bit random. You can't really force a ray of anguish to go on a person. So yeah, you want to figure that out. But I think since it's the first boss, you can maybe also just a little bit like wing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course it's a dragon. It's got a nice frontal breath. And then this item, which is a rare trinket, and I think the boss seems pretty easy, so this will probably be like pugged for this trinket in maybe a week or two. Once people kind of get heroic under their belt, you might find some group finders in there. I guess that usually happens when they do the cross realm, but it does seem pretty easy, so.
Another interesting thing about this trinket is even if you don't, like even if it's not best in slot for you, since it's 447 item level in Mythic, you could go in, just get the trinket, and then you can upgrade any other plus trinket to 441 max item level for free. Well, you still have to pay flight stones, but no crests, which might be something that people do, which, yeah, it's a little bit interesting, right? Because what if you do a Mythic boss and somebody needs an item even though they don't need it?
Yeah.
Just to upgrade other items? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be a problem. All right, the next boss, Shadow Flame Amalgamation. This boss starts off split in two and then merges into this big guy. I think at one point you can see there like MOLGOTH was the name, I think on PTR.
Yeah.
And back when we made the slides, and then for some reason changed to Shadow Flame Amalgamation, but either way. And on this one, there's two bosses, a flame and a shadow. You tank them separately, and they each have different mechanics and a like pulsing dot in their vicinity. So you want to split the raid up as well. And then the fire guy, what is it? He does a soak, a group soak, solo soaks, and then flame tornadoes. The shadow guy, you run out with a puddle, you run out of orbs, and you run away from an orb that's sucking you in. And then when he combines, it kind of mixes those abilities together. And then on Mythic, you can't touch anybody. If you've got a shadow debuff, you can't touch anybody with a fire debuff, and vice versa.
You want to do that, actually, I think.
You do? To clear it?
Yeah, because you want to clear it. So that's the only way you can clear the debuff, because it stacks up like infinitely. If you're on the fire side, you get the fire debuff stacking infinitely, and the shadow side. And the only way to clear the debuffs is to collide with a person from the other side. It does like a little bit of damage, like an explosion, that shouldn't kill you technically. And then it leaves behind a lingering debuff, which also is like a ticking debuff, which increases the damage taken from that side that you cleared it on. So basically, you're on the shadow side, then you clear with a red person from the fire side, and then you go on the fire side to make sure the damage increase is not gonna matter, because it's only shadow damage increase, right?
And then I believe when he merges, it says in the dungeon journal it gives like half the raid fire, half the raid shadow. I don't know if it's just like if your shadow's higher, it keeps it that way, or if it just does like a full sweep reset.
Yeah, I think it's just a little bit RNG. I think Jack said that if you had fire debuff before, it will just give you fire again.
Okay.
And if you don't have any debuffs at all, then maybe it's RNG at that point. But yeah, it gives you that phase 1 debuff from either shadow or shadow, and then you can just clear it. It's only like if it's only one debuff and you clear with another person, it's not going to be a big deal. It's only like one lingering debuff. It can be annoying because you have the damage increase on you while there's shadow flame damage happening. So you get more damage from both sides. But yeah, I think it's an interesting boss. But we've already seen guilds kill it, so it's probably more on the easier side.
Yeah, just what was it, like 9 attempts or something?
Yeah, like 8 or 9.
Pretty quick, yeah. Which then it's not the next easiest boss, but the Forgotten Experiments. It's the next one in the wing from the Amalgamation. It's a kind of council fight. On normal and heroic, you just fight one at a time, but on Mythic, you fight one until it gets to 50%, and then his friend comes down, and then the third one comes down when the second one hits 50%. So I imagine you just want to keep burning the lowest one down, maybe effective cleave.
Yeah, it depends, because the second one here, well, the first one can also be dangerous. So the first one has a discharge that has leaves a bleed behind that is permanent on Mythic. So you kind of want to get rid of him to make sure you have less bleeds, but then at the same time, bleeds are something you can get rid of with certain like evokers and dwarf racials, stuff like that, immunities. But in phase 2, Tadrion actually applies a magic debuff to players, and it cannot be removed. Whenever you dispel it, it will just jump to a different person. And it does a lot of like damage, like ramping damage. And the longer this boss is alive, the more of these debuffs you get, and that can make the last phase really difficult. So it's possible that the strategy is that you get Neldris to 50, and then you just completely nuke down Tadrion. But that would mean that you eventually have like 3 bosses, right? Unless you have a lot of cleave and manage to cleave down Neldris passively. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. No one's killed that, correct?
Yeah, no one killed it.
No one, okay. Yeah. So maybe tomorrow, maybe Thursday, we'll get to see it.
Yeah.
Exciting. And now the next, probably the second easiest is Soul of Zakali. This is the boss with a ton of ads and a nice phoenix. This guy rides around. And so you battle Warlord KAGNI here, and then he jumps on the phoenix and kind of flies between these 2 platforms as ads climb up the walls. And the ads do like some frontals and like some spears you want to aim away from the raid. And then on Mythic, the Phoenix is spawning little phoenixes that fixate people, and when they die, they resurrect in ash, as the phoenixes in WoW do, and chase after people. I'm not sure if they just ever go away, or if you kind of are slowly building them up over the fight, but it seems like pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, we were watching on normal, they were just like kind of ignoring a side and just burning the boss as he jumped to like the first side. They just sent the whole raid over there, burned him. But yeah, Mythic, you want to split the raid up, and then there's rocks you can throw down on the people that are climbing the walls to prevent ads from spawning, which is I think is pretty cool.
It's a pretty cool mechanic, yeah.
Yeah, kind of very fantasy. And here he's got a trinket, strength. Not sure how good this one is. Do you happen to know?
Not very good if I would have to guess. It's also like a lower item level trinket because it's one of the earlier bosses. So that might also be a little bit of an issue.
Yeah, and then he's guarding, or they're attacking a door. I'm not sure why they attack the door.
Yeah.
But
Good question.
I think you then go through the door to get to RASHOK,
Yeah.
the next boss, which seems to be a fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's he's full single target, jumps around, leaves puddles on the ground of these big fire tornadoes that shoot out slimes, and it's like a lava wave slime thing. It's a cool new graphic they have. And you want to just like run the slam out of the raid, and then there's a group soak. And on Mythic, this group soak puts a debuff on everybody that you need to run to the center of the room to clear. And when you clear it, it AoEs the whole raid, so you kind of want to stagger those. And also on Mythic, he spawns 2 shadow orbs around the room, and you use the slam that on the random player to kill 1 orb, and then only 1 explodes, because if you have 2 explode, it makes the second one hit harder.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't test this boss on PTR test, but I saw it a little bit and I saw some videos, and it looks pretty cool. Also, like very heavy rate damage as well, so like a healer boss maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, since also a little bit of an early boss, we haven't seen anyone kill this boss yet, and we haven't seen anyone attempt it. At least I haven't seen it. So not sure how much damage it's going to do, but looks like an interesting fight.
Yeah, a tier boss as well. Mm-hmm. And this polearm, a rare loot.
Oh yeah,
Which I don't know how good the polearm is. I know there's a sword later in the raid it's not rare, but it has like a proc on it, and it's very good. But I'm not sure about this polearm.
Yeah, who can even wear this? This is like Guardian and Feral?
Yeah,
Who else
survival.
can wear a 2-hand polearm? Yeah, survival, I guess.
Yeah, monk.
Monk, yeah.
Yeah, so not on the most flavor of the month specs.
Yeah, that's a 2-minute 30 cooldown. Seems like a weird.
Yeah, siphon the health from
CD?
nearby enemies. Just some damage. Okay.
Yeah, I played it a little bit on PTR when I was testing some dungeons, and it was kind of nice. It also hit explosives
Oh.
somehow, but obviously explosives was removed, so
Yeah, we don't have
it's
to
not
worry
gonna
about
help you
those.
anymore.
Yeah, but I think everyone's excited for this boss, and it's probably going to be pretty easy because it could be like the 4th boss you do,
Yeah.
or potentially even the 3rd because you can split up. But I think they'll do the first of the early wing, or of the wings, and then go to the second of the wings.
That would make the most sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after you get past both wings, you can then get to Skarn, which I think most people like this one as well.
I like Skarn. It looks very interesting. There is definitely a lot going on. Seems a little bit overwhelming at first, but I like it. I think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's got the Broodkeeper mechanic where you drag him around the room and he activates traps instead of eggs, and like 2 nearby traps, and I think maybe 1 random off somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then these golems come out and they just start marching. Is it to just the edge of the room?
I think they always march like the opposite of where they spawn, and then they just disable a trap somewhere there.
Yeah, and so when you kill these golems, you can then loot them and then disable whatever trap you want that's already activated. And I believe on Mythic, at 50% health, they become unCCable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and there's also, this fight can get very hectic because there's fire traps randomly lit up everywhere. He'll just like area denial half the room with these increasingly big fire waves. Mm-hmm. And then also put circles onto like 5 people or something.
Yeah.
And it just does, AoE damage. But on Mythic, it shoots out like a bolt to each one of those players. And if it hits you, you take more damage for the next one. So you need to spread those out and ideally not get hit by anybody else's.
Yeah, this one is very similar to Hungering Destroyer, right?
Yeah.
It is beams, and on Mythic, if you overlap them somehow, you would just die or kill other people. So you have to be a bit careful, especially because there's so many other things going on simultaneously. And then the boss moves sometimes, so you really have to be careful to not overlap them. And as a player that doesn't have the beam on you, you also have to watch out that you're not standing in any of them.
Yeah, and the boss also does a knockback, so that just kind of displaces things and can make it get very hectic. I think when the room, if it lives to like near enrage, which I hope it does, the room's just going to be like covered in fire. People are going to get knocked like in these crazy spots. It's going to be like really chaotic end of the fight. It's going to be really fun to watch. And this next boss, MAGMORAX, is kind of like similar. I think RASHOK, Sicaran, and MAGMORAX are very similar bosses. Single target. I mean, there's some adds on Sicaran, but there's a lot of like area denial, running out of space, and just burning the boss before you get lit on fire.
I think that this boss is going to be the ultimate single target boss.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a super big burn boss and also like a super big healing check. Kind of like Sludge Fist, I would say.
Yeah. And on this one, instead of fire traps taking up the room, there's puddles that players can drop, and they can be soaked up by other players, and it gives you a stacking dot. And if you get to too many stacks, you just instantly die.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a group soak that also drops a puddle, so you need like some people to run out, group soak, suck it up. And then on Mythic, the puddles can only get so small, and then they'll just grow forever. So you have to like keep them under control. And I'm not sure what happens if you just keep stacking them on top of each other.
You get double the stack. So if you have if you stand on 2, it basically doesn't. It does help because it's less area of denial.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have too many, then you step in 1 second and you instantly have 10 stacks and die. So you have to be a bit careful with that. But I still think you can stack some of them on top of each other.
Okay, that's good to know. And then there's all the rooms surrounded by lava, and then this guy also does a knockback, and this one is like huge.
Yeah.
It's like
Big knockback.
20 yards back or something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a lot of things, a frontal breath. So it's just going to be, I imagine the end is just going to be them in the corner dodging a breath and trying not to get knocked into the lava or the puddles because they're going to instantly die because they've min-maxed every single stack on every player.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's going to be exciting.
I think the stack death also pierces immunities, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not sure. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so if you walk into like a puddle, like you can't just like stack them all up and then have somebody with like a mage blink into it and like ice block. I think you die through it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, no way to cheese. Yeah, this
That would
one's
make
going to
sense.
be the sludge fist, probably kind of like DPS right to the very end and barely kill it
Yeah?
of the tier. Or we hope anyways. It's if not, if it's undertuned, it's going to be pretty easy.
Yeah, that's the
'Cause-
problem with it, yeah.
Yeah, there's not much else to it other than don't run out of space.
Yeah.
Yep, tier boss also. A nice little trinket here. Yeah.
Oh, this trinket is actually decently good for druids, I think. Munkin
really?
at least. It's a little weird with the tides.
Yeah. High tide, low. Is it just like magma tides? I guess it has to be.
Yeah.
But
I don't actually know. I never tested this trinket, actually.
yeah, everybody's eyes are on the trinkets off the next boss,
Yep.
Echo of NELTHARION. He drops the rare trinkets, which we'll get to in a second.
Oh, who's this guy? I haven't seen this boss.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch 40 of these sometime. But yes, if you've been watching any of the stream today, like the later half, it's been a lot of this boss. He's 3 phases, and he's got these cool wall patterns that pop up, and then he knocks players back and the tank back. And when you get knocked back into a wall, it opens a hole, spawns a bunch of swirlies. And then on Mythic, you're going to use these walls to line of sight the volcanic heart. On normal and heroic, it was just a circle, but on Mythic, you need to line of sight. And let's see, I'm just looking through all the mechanics. There's a lot on here. I think that's
There's
kind
a
of just
lot.
phase 1.
Yeah, phase 1 is the Twisted Earth, the Volcanic Heart, Echo and Fish, Shatter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit of an end rage, right? So you need to make sure you push the boss fast enough into phase 2, because otherwise he'll just do some sort of end rage cast.
Yeah, I think each phase has kind of a soft enrage.
Yes.
And phase 2 starts at 70%. He then marks a couple players. They turn hostile to everybody. And then there's ads around the room that the hostile people can go kill a shield on.
Mm-hmm.
Then once the shield is killed, the rest of the raid can attack the ads. And you need to kill all 3 ads to exit that phase. And if you don't kill the ads, the boss just takes like no damage at 38%. And you just got to get the ads down before the soft enrage of P2 kills you.
Yeah.
And there's still the knockbacks in the walls. And then the tank's mechanic's a little different. They can like go through the walls and then suck their body back to destroy them. It's cool. And then phase 3, NELTHARION actually starts to kill the walls. And when he destroys them, they turn to portals, which you can use to dodge the Ebon Destruction, which is an instant kill. It's like Algalon in Ulduar, where you just kind of like dip into the portal and dip out. And we were wondering what these ads do. They spawn from the portal and they just ramp up and do damage, and I think they just are like killing the tanks at some point.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
It looked like become bigger, kind of like almost like bolstering. It looked like.
And in Mythic, you can only have one person per portal in that phase, so that's kind of your soft and rage of that phase, is can you kill the boss before you run out of portals? And second to last, this guy's probably going to be pretty hard. And we saw him, like, on Heroic, it took a couple attempts, but didn't seem too bad. And that there it is. These ones on the right, the red, orange, and green trinket, they're rare trinkets, and this orange one has the Warlock on it, and that is a very good trinket. You proc it with your Tyrant, basically you get a bunch of main stat, and I guess it's a huge damage increase.
Yeah, I think almost all classes actually want their class trinket, but for some it's not as good. It's not like a 20% damage increase. But I think for Warlock it's pretty insane, yeah.
Yeah, and then that sword, the two-hander.
Yeah.
I guess Lip was saying that's very powerful as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to see that. And this is where, like, the item levels, is that the max 457?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so this is where the item levels hit its cap. No way you can get item level like this in the game anywhere but these bosses. So, yeah, Abyss for pretty much everyone possibly, especially like that sword. Anyone who can use it.
It's gonna the sword is gonna be a little bit lower. It's not 424. That's obviously like wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the class trinkets, since they're rare items, they're a little bit higher, right? So I think the sword is gonna be a bit lower. Or is the Ashkandar also a rare item?
No, I don't think it's rare. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
They're not 457. They're I can't remember, 451-ish or something like that.
Maybe something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have the healer trinket as well, which is also apparently really good, I heard.
Mm-hmm.
It says grant an ally within ward for 10 seconds. I mean, it's a big absorb. 250k damage absorb.
Just to one friend?
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah, and then
Broken, the ward coalesces into within iron, dealing shadow damage for 6 seconds to the last enemy to strike it. I don't know what that means.
I guess just whoever pops a shield takes a dot.
Maybe? So like damage on the healer, you mean?
Oh, like on the mob that breaks the shield off the tank, or I guess whoever you throw it
yeah,
onto.
that would make more sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it's like a kiss curse, but yeah, that would make more sense.
All right, now we're to our final man.
Mm-hmm.
Scale Commander Sarkareth. I believe when we made these slides, we hadn't seen him, and it was just a bunch of Dungeon Journal stuff. So we were going to kind of like theorize what he's like, but then we actually got to see him today. What are your thoughts on this boss?
I mean, I didn't see that much of the boss because unfortunately I was sleeping and then getting ready. But what I've seen, it looked very cool. Like just all the animations looked incredibly awesome. Like the frontal brush and even like just the colors of the abilities looked really cool. And then also this like downstairs face where we're in a different realm with the bomb. Like it all looked very, very pleasing and nice. But other than that, I just saw there's a lot of mechanics.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I can remember of it, phase 1, he does a roar, everyone gets a debuff. Mm-hmm. And
Oppressive roar, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like a Drakthir, so it's very Drakthir-like abilities.
Yeah, and then he does a breath and some sort of beam, I believe.
Yeah.
And that removes the roar. So you want to be like standing in these things, but only to get rid of your debuff. I'm not sure what the roar does if it's on you. Is it just stacking damage?
I'm not sure either. I think it's something like if this debuff is still on you at some point later in the fight, you just die.
Oh, okay.
You just have to get rid of it.
Yeah, and then he goes to phase 2 at some point, gets a little more voidy, and I'm blanking on phase 2.
Phase 2, let me try to think. That's when with the downstairs phase, right?
Yeah, there is a way to get phase. Every time you take shadow damage, you get like a stack of something, and when you get to 10, you go into a different realm. And so, like, these bombs will spawn. They kind of look like the seeds on Zymox.
Yeah.
And was that his name, Zymox?
Zymox, yeah.
Yeah. And you pick those up and then get sent to the Shadow Realm. And I don't know if you drop them or they just explode on you. Mm-hmm. And
I think there's also, like, downstairs. If you are downstairs, you get, like, a haste stack. Like, there's, like, things lying around you can walk into and you get, like, a buff that gives you haste or damage. So kind of incentivizes damage dealers to do it instead of healers.
Yeah.
It's like, yay, finally. It's like the damage dealer's doing a job.
And then I was watching, it was like JPC's POV. You get sent down and then there's like 3 like circles that look like soaks, and when he touched all 3, he just popped back out.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And then in the last phase, like meteors come down, which cause line of sight.
Oh, okay.
And then there were like all these beams around that have arrows that point to different people, and they knock. And then you have to line of sight, and it had a really cool graphic where like the shadow appears in the safe area.
Okay.
So you don't have to be like, it reminded me of Star Augur, where you had to like look around the room, like where's the eyeball?
Yeah,
but this
yeah.
time you could just like run to the shadow.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't like it when there's things like somewhere, right? Because
yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of having to move my camera around in weird angles.
Yeah. And then Star Augur had that like part by the door where it just like got
your
stuck.
camera was just like first person, and all of a sudden you didn't see anything anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I'm excited to see that one on heroic. It looked a little difficult on normal, so.
Yeah, they wiped a few times on normal, right? So, which means heroic will be pretty difficult. But they want to kill it a lot of times because, of course, it drops the Omni token.
Yeah,
right?
it drops. Yeah, if people don't know the Omni token, it can be any tier token. Void touched Curio, and then he's also got this rare cloak which doesn't have stamina.
Yeah.
And has a very kiss cursey effect, I guess, to use that term, where you suck stats off of your friends and then you get a lot of stats.
Yeah. Interesting for sure.
Yeah, I don't know about the no stamina part. Like I didn't even notice that until someone pointed it out to me.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about it though, is that I assume if you get it in heroic, it's probably not going to be that great because it's lower stats, and you could probably get a higher cloak from something else. And then on mythic, you already killed the last boss, so it's not for progression anymore. It's just for re-clear. And at that point, maybe it's not that big of a deal if you have less stamina. But for progression, I probably wouldn't want to equip a cloak that has no stamina. Like that's a big deal if you're missing so much health.
Yeah, I took a cloak off on my demon hunter. It was like 40k health or something.
Yeah,
just
it's a lot of health.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's got this beacon. I think we saw a lot of those drop.
They're actually really good. I tried this on beta a bit. It also has this weird cooldown, 2 minute 30. I don't understand what that's about.
Yeah.
But it's just like a big nuke. And it was pretty good. But yeah, it also works on AoE to split damage. So it can be nice for certain situations where you need a lot of like bursts or something like that. So yeah, not bad.
Yeah, and again on the Omni token, great addition to the boss, I think.
Yeah,
Because there was like with Jailer, there was some like, do we even need to kill this thing on splits and on normal and stuff like that? And now it's just way too valuable not to kill the last boss.
Yes, it's really good. Also, another thing to note, I guess, is that they changed the vault loot table. I'm not sure if you heard. Because in the past, if you didn't kill Jailer, you didn't have Jailer loot in your vault, right? And now they changed it that if you kill a boss, it will include all the previous bosses' loot tables in your vault.
Okay.
So if you ever
that's
kill
good.
NELTHARION, only NELTHARION and like no other boss, then it will still drop NELTHARION loot and all the other previous bosses. Kind of stop people from abusing the system and only killing certain bosses.
All right, yeah, I think that's a good change, a healthy change anyways.
I like it, yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for the rundown of the raid. I hope people found that helpful. But should we check in on that poll?
Yeah, let's check
and see
it out.
what the people thought of the other end bosses? Let's see.
Yeah.
I knew you guys were smart.
Do you think we manipulated a little bit by saying?
Oh yeah, maybe
the
we shouldn't have
numbers?
said things, but
Maybe.
but I think he's a fan favorite. He was also like at the time, the Race to World First, that boss was probably as close as it got.
Yeah.
Like
true.
I think both guilds were pulling it, and maybe Echo turned their streams off, didn't they?
I think they were streaming.
Okay, at that point they were streaming.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because something got changed. That's right. Yeah, and it was just like both guilds are getting these super low wipes back to back, and it was very thrilling, and also just a great boss with a good end where you're running out of space.
I love the part where in the last phase on Mythic, you would just have one group be in the mirror world, and everything happens like the opposite way. I thought that was just so cool.
Yeah, me too. It wasn't like super difficult, but it was like a fun, like came up with like a really clever strat for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really good. And sorry, Jailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw Jailer's room, I was like, ooh, this boss could be cool.
Yeah, right. The boss room, that did look cool.
Yeah.
But then it had all of this line of sight thing again. They do a lot of line of sight things lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pillars, and then you had the bombs, which you kind of needed a week or four for it to work. And then, yeah, just too front-loaded difficulty, I think. Just like phase one super hard, and then the other phase maybe not so much. And yeah. And then they nerfed it a lot.
Oh, yeah. A lot. Same with Razageth. A lot of nerfs.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching. But before you go, we want to plug our charity, Oceans Conservancy. We're donating to save the oceans, clean them up a bit,
Yep.
getting dirty, and
Good
it's a
cause.
very, very important thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And exclamation point charity in the chat, and it's tl.gg/rwf-donate if
Yep.
you want to give. And also make sure to check out the apparel. I think, are you wearing the same
I am
sweater I
wearing
am? Beautiful.
Really nice.
It's
And
got a
super
nice
cozy.
MAGMORAX on the back.
Yeah.
Good orange. There's some mouse pads, some shirts. Very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, any last words, Naguura?
Thank you for hanging out in the After Dark show to the viewers. And of course, thank you for doing the show, being a great host and explaining the bosses to all the viewers. I'm sure they're going to have a much easier time when they do the raid next.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to our sponsors, Coinbase, Honda, Thorn, Monster Energy, Alienware, Twitch, Radar.io, Warcraft Vlogs, and Wowhead, and of course, Secret Lab for sponsoring this segment and these wonderful chairs. Thank you, Naguura. And don't forget to sub to the channel. They're going to be replaying everything that happened today. There will be some ads, but you can sub to dodge them. What you should do, use your Prime. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the morning for Rise and Raid with Automatic Jack and Aya.